On a quiet Friday afternoon in West Des Moines, Iowa, a 27-year-old real estate agent named Ashley Okland walked into a brand new model townhome to host an open house. She was alone. Less than 5 minutes after sending a casual text message to a friend, 2 gunshots echoed through the empty rooms of that townhome. And for the next 15 years, nobody could figure out who pulled the trigger. But when police finally made an arrest, the answer had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. Ashley Marie Okland was born on December 30th, 1983, and grew up in Kelly, Iowa, a town so small that everybody knew everybody. She was the kind of person you'd only have to meet once to remember forever. Ambitious, radiant, and relentlessly upbeat, Ashley had graduated in the top 3% of her class at Ballard High School in 2002, and she'd originally set her sights on becoming a physical therapist. And so she enrolled at the University of Northern Iowa, then transferred to Iowa State University, where she earned a degree in exercise science in 2006. But somewhere along the way, real estate pulled her in. She started at a small firm called JDR Group in 2007, and by 2010, she'd moved to Iowa Realty, the largest real estate company in the state. Her colleagues would later say she had this magnetic quality about her, this outgoing warmth and a smile that could light up a conference room. One coworker put it simply, "You would have only had to have met her once, and you would remember her." And Ashley wasn't just building a career. She sat on the board of Young Variety, a children's charity dedicated to kids with special needs. And she volunteered as a big sister through Big Brothers, big sisters mentoring children who needed someone steady in their corner. She believed every kid, regardless of ability, deserved the chance to play side by side with other kids, and that belief wasn't something she just talked about. It was something she lived. At home, her life was full. She lived in West Des Moines with her boyfriend Eric Grubb, who she called the love of her life, and their dog Indy. Her father Tim lived back in Kelly. Her mother Deb was in nearby Huxley, her brother Josh was in Ames, and her sister Brittany had moved to Minneapolis. Ashley was the one who held them all together, the planner, the connector, the person who was always organizing the next concert or golf outing or fundraiser. But none of them knew that on April 8, 2011, Ashley would walk into a model townhome at 558 Stone Creek Court, and she would never walk out. The question of who killed her and why would haunt this community for 15 years. And the answer, when it finally came, would be stranger than anyone imagined. That Friday morning, Ashley drove to the Stone Creek Villa subdivision near 84th Street and EP True Parkway in West Des Moines. The development had been built by a company called Rottlund Homes, one of the largest private home builders in the country, and Ashley was there to show their model townhome to potential buyers. It was the kind of routine assignment she'd done dozens of times before, and there was nothing about this particular Friday that felt any different. Sometime before 2 o'clock that afternoon, Ashley sent a text message to a friend. It was casual, lighthearted, completely ordinary. But within 5 minutes of hitting send, a Rottlund Homes employee working elsewhere in the complex heard 2 sharp sounds coming from inside the model home. And so the employee rushed over, pushed through the front door, and found Ashley lying on the floor in a silence that didn't match what they'd just heard. She had been shot twice, once in the head and once in the chest. Paramedics rushed her to Iowa Methodist Medical Center, but it was too late, and what made this crime so deeply unsettling was everything that was missing from the scene. There were no signs of a struggle. Nothing had been stolen. There was no evidence of sexual assault. It was as though Ashley had simply opened the door for someone she recognized, someone she had no reason to fear, and that person had killed her without hesitation. Her mother, Deb Cochran, would later put into words what everyone was already thinking. I think she knew the person because there was no struggle, but if Ashley knew her killer, that meant her killer was someone she trusted. And that question, who among the people in Ashley's world could have done this, would torment investigators for years to come. Police sealed off Stone Creek Court and tore the crime scene apart, but the townhome gave them almost nothing to work with. No murder weapon was recovered. The caliber of the gun was never publicly disclosed. And the only significant lead in those early days was a black SUV, possibly a Cadillac Escalade, that witnesses reported seeing parked outside the model home for roughly 20 minutes around the time of the shooting. But despite pulling surveillance footage from every camera within miles, investigators could not identify the driver or trace the vehicle. And so the investigation expanded rapidly. By September of 2011, detectives had chased down more than 600 leads, conducted 400 interviews, and sifted through 200 Crime Stoppers tips. The reward money climbed fast, from $1,000 to over $66,000, then to $75,000, and finally to $150,000, the largest Crime Stoppers reward in Polk County history. But that wasn't even the worst part, because even with all of that money on the table, even with hundreds of interviews and an entire community desperate for answers, police still didn't have a suspect. By the 10-year anniversary in 2021, investigators had spoken with more than 500 people and followed up on over 900 tips. The case had been featured on In Pursuit with John Walsh on Investigation Discovery, bringing national attention to a murder that had baffled local law enforcement for a decade. But despite all that scrutiny, the case remained ice cold. The years kept passing. 2012, 2015, 2020, and the people who loved Ashley, her father Tim, her mother Deb, her brother Josh, her sister Brittany, all of them were left to wonder if they would ever know what happened inside that townhome. What the public didn't know was that detectives had been holding back. From the very beginning, police had deliberately withheld critical details from the press, the weapon type, the forensic evidence they'd collected, and whatever threads they were still quietly pulling behind the scenes. Assistant Police Chief Jody Hayes, who had eventually spent half of his entire 30-year career working this single case, later described it as one that kept many of us awake at night, revisiting the details over and over in our minds, searching for that missing piece. And then, in 2024, someone found it. Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird had just launched the state's first cold case unit, and Ashley Okland's file was among the cases they reopened. Fresh eyes began combing through old evidence alongside new forensic technology, and whatever they found was compelling enough that in early 2026, a Dallas County grand jury convened in secret, reviewed the evidence that had been assembled over 15 years, and returned a true bill, an indictment for first-degree murder. On March 17th, 2026, 15 years after Ashley Okland was shot inside that model townhome, police drove to a quiet house in Woodward, Iowa. A town of about 1,000 people 30 miles northwest of Des Moines, and arrested a 53-year-old woman named Kristin Ramsey. And this is where the story takes its most chilling turn, because Kristin Ramsey was not a stranger to that townhome. She had spent 14 years working for Rottlund Homes, the very company that built the model home where Ashley was murdered. As the company's sales manager and administrative assistant for their Iowa division, Ramsey would have known every detail about that property, its layout, its access points, its showing schedule, and exactly when a young agent from Iowa Realty would be inside it alone. She had the keys, she had the knowledge, and she had been there all along. After Rottlund collapsed later in 2011, Ramsey moved to Midland Title and Escrow, a title company that operated under the same corporate umbrella as Iowa Realty, where Ashley had worked. For years, both women had been orbiting the same tight-knit Des Moines real estate world, and yet Ramsey had no criminal record whatsoever. Not a misdemeanor, not an arrest, nothing but a single speeding ticket from 2001. She was married to a man named Toby, settled in a small town, and to everyone around her, completely unremarkable. The kind of person no one would ever think to suspect. Prosecutors have not revealed a motive. The probable cause documents remain sealed. And through her attorneys, Kristin Ramsey has stated that she adamantly maintains her innocence. She sits in the Dallas County Jail on a $2 million cash-only bond, declared indigent, unable to post it. Her arraignment is scheduled for April 10th, 2026. At the press conference announcing the arrest, Ashley's brother Josh Okland stepped up to the microphones and said, "Today is a day my family has thought about very often over the last 14 years. Her sister Brittany, who had since married and taken the name Bruce, spoke next. And what she said landed like a weight. We had lost our hope in finding answers and having any justice for Ashley. It was really difficult to accept that the case had gone cold. But even while the investigation went quiet, Ashley's legacy never did. In 2014, the children's charity she had served built the Ashley Okland Star Playground at Ewing Park in Des Moines, the city's first fully inclusive playground, designed so that every child, regardless of ability, could play together, exactly the way Ashley had always believed they should. More than $500,000 was raised to build it, and the real estate industry she loved changed its safety practices forever in her name, with agencies in all 50 states adopting new protocols so that no agent would ever have to show a home alone the way Ashley did that Friday afternoon. 15 years ago, more than 1,600 people filled the Lutheran Church of Hope in West Des Moines to say goodbye to Ashley Okland, her boyfriend Eric, her father Tim, her mother Deb, her brother Josh, her sister Brittany. All of them walked out of that church carrying the same unbearable question. Now, for the first time, they may finally get their answer.